I could die. I could go to jail. Like, this is the life that I chose to live. So anything that come with this life, I got to accept it. I can't be like, oh man, nigga, nigga shot me. Okay, that's what come with this. It's for real.
Yeah, like I keep telling all my partners and shit, man, I still feel like a dream I had in jail, man. One of them dreams I had was all this was going on and I woke up still in jail. That's what it feel like. Yeah, it's real.
This is 28-year-old Kamor Kendrick, known as Concrete K, a Louisiana rapper who had only recently returned home after serving a prison sentence for second-degree murder before being gunned down in what appears to be a revenge attack. In the early morning hours of November 12, 2023, just after 1:40 a.m., police responded to reports of gunfire at the Orleans Square Apartments near East Kings Highway and Jackson Square Boulevard in Shreveport, Louisiana. When officers arrived, they found Kamor suffering from multiple gunshot wounds to his upper body. He was rushed to the hospital, but he did not survive. Not long before that, Kamor had been sent to prison for killing another rapper, a conviction that permanently altered both his life and his music. Now, he was dead, killed only a short time after being released from prison. But to understand how everything led to his death, we have to go back to where his story began. This is the life and death of Kamor Kendrick.
Was grind and get this shit out the mud. If I hit one of your dogs, get that shit back in blood. So they're just not caught about the island, free my liquor.
Kamor Kendrick was born in 1995, and he was raised in Shreveport, Louisiana, a city that shaped nearly every part of who he would become. Growing up, family mattered to him, even when stability didn't always come easily. He grew up surrounded by relatives who knew his temperament well, quiet at times, intense at others, deeply observant and sensitive to respect. From an early age, Kamor understood how quickly circumstances could change, and that awareness followed him into adulthood. But even before music entered the picture, Kamor carried a sense of identity rooted in place. Shreveport wasn't just where he lived, it was something he wore. The neighborhoods, the people, the reputations, and the unspoken rules of survival were all part of his upbringing. Those around him described him as someone who paid attention, who watched more than he spoke, and who internalized what he saw. That trait would later shape both his music and his choices. And music did come early. Kamor eventually adopted the stage name Concrete K, a name that reflected both toughness and permanence. To him, it symbolized endurance, something solid, something that doesn't bend easily. Rap became his outlet, not as a hobby, but as a form of expression rooted in lived experience. His lyrics weren't abstract or metaphor-heavy. They were direct. He rapped about pressure, fear, loyalty, incarceration, and survival.
They swear I'm living in life, but I swear I ain't living right. I'm from a place where shit get gangster. Walk out that house, you just might die without that banger. Peep the picture that I painted.
His sound reflected Louisiana's gritty street rap culture, with raw delivery and unfiltered content that resonated locally. As his catalog grew, so did his presence. Concrete K wasn't a mainstream artist, but he had a following. His music circulated through YouTube, local platforms, and word of mouth. He became known in Shreveport as someone who spoke honestly about the environment he came from. That honesty gave him credibility, but it also tied his name to real-world consequences. In cities like Shreveport, rap doesn't exist in isolation. Music and street life often overlap, whether artists want that connection or not. And soon enough, that overlap would become unavoidable. On April 8, 2018, Kendrick's life changed forever, because on that day, Shreveport rapper Jonathan Robertson, known as PDA, was shot and killed inside his home in the Cedar Grove neighborhood, on the 7,000th block of Brentway Street in Shreveport, Louisiana. The shooting happened just after 2:30 a.m. PDA was hit multiple times in the upper body and rushed to University Health Hospital, where he later died from his injuries. The impact was immediate. PDA wasn't only known for music, he was also a DJ and a father, someone actively involved in both his family and the local scene. His death sent shockwaves through Shreveport's tight-knit rap community, where artists often knew each other personally or by reputation. This wasn't a distant headline. It was close, familiar, and unsettling. But in the hours after the shooting, answers were limited. Investigators confirmed the shooting took place inside the home, but details about what led up to it were not made public right away. There was no immediate arrest and no clear explanation offered as to why PDA had been targeted. For a time, the case sat in that uncomfortable space between tragedy and uncertainty. Then, everything shifted. Nearly 2 months later, on June 14, 2018, police arrested Kamor Kendrick in connection with PDA's murder. Kendrick was just 23 years old at the time. According to authorities, he was accused of firing the handgun that killed Jonathan Robertson, while 2 other people were inside the residence. That single allegation changed the direction of the case completely. Kendrick was charged with second-degree murder, a charge that carries severe penalties. Bond was set to $500,000, making it clear that prosecutors viewed the case as serious and high risk. From that moment on, the situation moved out of the streets and into the courtroom, where every decision would have long-term consequences. But the arrest didn't bring closure. Instead, it raised more questions. What happened inside that house? What led to the confrontation? And why did it escalate to gunfire instead of ending another way? Those questions followed Kamor Kendrick as the legal process began. Because for him, June 14, 2018 wasn't just an arrest date. It was the point where his life stopped moving forward and became locked inside a case that would shape everything that came next. And that case was far from over. The case did not go to trial. Instead, Kamor accepted a plea deal, a decision he would later speak about openly. Under the agreement, he received a 15-year sentence with 5 years to be served and 10 years suspended, meaning any violation or new felony would send him back to prison to serve the remainder. Ultimately, he served approximately 3 years before being released in late 2021. In interviews after his release, Kamor spoke candidly about the system. He described feeling trapped between 2 outcomes: risking trial and potentially facing life in prison, or accepting a plea that still carried long-term consequences. He believed the justice system pressured defendants into deals regardless of nuance. Whether people agreed with him or not, one thing was clear: prison had left a mark. But prison didn't silence him. When Kamor returned home, he returned to music. Life after release was complicated. He was free, but not free from consequences. 10 years of suspended time hung over him. Any mistake could erase his progress. Still, he resumed recording, releasing tracks that reflected both survival and paranoia. He rapped about incarceration, about feeling watched, about the pressure of knowing that danger didn't disappear just because time had passed. And then, something happened that made those fears feel real. About 6 months before his death, Kamor was shot but survived. The details of that incident were never fully clarified publicly, but the impact was undeniable. He ended up hospitalized, and instead of retreating, he documented it. He released a movie video filmed from the hospital, rapping about narrowly escaping death, about time running out, about betrayal and enemies. The message was clear. He knew he was being targeted. Yet, despite that warning, Kamor stayed. In one interview, he openly acknowledged that leaving Louisiana might have been the safest choice. He spoke about how opportunity elsewhere could offer distance from old conflicts, but knowing something intellectually and acting on it are 2 different things. His life, his identity, and his name were tied to Shreveport, and that tie proved difficult to break. As months passed, Kamor continued releasing music. Some tracks referenced money on his head, others referenced being hunted. Listeners debated whether he was manifesting danger or simply describing reality. Either way, the tension surrounding him grew heavier. And then, quietly, the tone shifted again. Because surviving one shooting doesn't always bring peace. Sometimes it sharpens attention. Sometimes it confirms fears. Sometimes it tells others that you're still reachable. Little did Kamor know, the chapter he believed he had survived was not the final one. And while he continued moving forward, recording, appearing publicly, speaking on his past, another moment was already forming. One that would not end with recovery. One that would not allow a second chance. And at that point, no one realized just how close he was to the moment when everything would stop. But just when it seemed like Kimura had already outrun the worst outcomes of his past, the tension he carried finally caught up to him. In the early morning hours of November 12, 2023, Kimura was at the Orleans Square Apartments near East Kings Highway and Jackson Square Boulevard in Shreveport, Louisiana. It was just after 1:40 a.m., a quiet window of the night when most of the city had settled into routine silence. Everything was peaceful that night in Shreveport. Nothing about the moment suggested what was about to happen. Then, the stillness was broken. A sudden burst of gunfire echoed through the apartment complex, sharp and unmistakable. Calls to 911 began to come in almost immediately. At first, they were reported simply as shots fired. Within moments, as more information reached dispatchers, the urgency escalated. When officers arrived, they found Kimura suffering from multiple gunshot wounds to his upper body.
Shreveport police officers responded to the Orleans Square Apartments on Chamlet Drive around 1:40 this morning. SPD found 28-year-old Kimura Kendrick suffering with 2 gunshot wounds to his torso in the parking lot complex. He was transported to Oshner LSU Health, where he later died.
He was still alive, but barely. First responders moved quickly, applying aid and rushing him to the hospital as they fought to stabilize him. Every second mattered. The effort was frantic, focused, and urgent, an attempt to pull him back from injuries that were already severe. But despite those efforts, Kimura Kendrick, known to many as Concrete K, did not survive. In a matter of minutes, the violence he had spoken about, warned about, and narrowly escaped before had finally caught him. The fears threaded through his music were no longer hypothetical. They had become real. And just like that, the life he was trying to rebuild was cut short, leaving behind questions, silence, and a city once again left to process another loss that came far too early. However, the most unsettling part was not just the violence itself, it was how little clarity followed. As the scene was secured, investigators began working backward, trying to understand how Kimura ended up there and who might have been responsible. There was no immediate suspect, no arrest made that night, no weapon recovered at the scene. Whatever had happened unfolded quickly and left very little behind. But then a familiar pattern emerged. Neighbors reported hearing gunshots but seeing little else. No clear descriptions, no confrontation witnessed beforehand, just the sound of violence and the aftermath it left behind. The same silence that had surrounded the earlier shooting he survived now returned, heavier than before. Meanwhile, across Shreveport, the news spread fast. By morning, Kimura's death was confirmed publicly. He was 28 years old. His name was added to the city's homicide count for the year, marking another loss tied to a history that many believed had never truly released him. Fans replayed his music, old lyrics resurfaced, lines where he talked about running out of time suddenly carried a weight no one could ignore. And yet, the case itself offered few answers. As detectives pieced together the timeline, they confirmed that Kimura had been home for only about 2 years since his release from prison. He had survived one attempt on his life. He had spoken openly about danger, but knowing someone fears violence is not the same as knowing who will pull the trigger. That uncertainty shaped everything that followed. Despite the seriousness of the crime, no suspects were named in the immediate aftermath. Investigators continued canvassing the area, reviewing available evidence, and asking the public for help. Tips were requested, leads were followed, but nothing solid surfaced fast enough to bring clarity. And that raised a troubling question. If Kimura had known he was at risk, if he had survived once already, then what changed this time? Because this was not a random act, it was targeted. It happened where he was staying at a time when someone clearly knew he was there. The shooting wasn't chaotic or accidental, it was decisive. Whoever did this came with intent and left without hesitation. But justice would not come easily. As days passed, the investigation remained open. No arrests, no charges, just a growing sense that Kimmore's past and the unfinished conflicts tied to it had caught up to him in the most permanent way possible. For people watching from the outside, the tragedy hit hard. Some believed his death was retaliation. Others saw it as a result of a life that never fully escaped its environment. But for Kimmore's family and those who supported him, none of those explanations changed the truth that mattered most. Kimmore Kendrick was trying to move forward, and whatever progress he was making was cut short before it had the chance to fully take hold. And the story did not end with his death, because questions like these don't disappear on their own. As of now, police have not announced any arrests in connection with Kimmore Kendrick's killing. No suspects have been publicly named. The case remains open, and investigators continue to ask for information from anyone who may know what happened or who may have seen something that night. That silence has been difficult for those left behind. The same system that once determined Kimmore's future now struggles to explain how his life ended and who is responsible. And until someone is held accountable, one question continues to hang over Shreveport, unanswered. In the community, reactions split. Some viewed Kimmore's death through the lens of his past, framing it as the inevitable end of a dangerous cycle. Others pushed back hard against that narrative, pointing out that serving time, whether through a plea or trial, was supposed to mean a debt paid, not a life forfeited. The debate played out online and in private conversations, revealing a deeper tension about redemption, accountability, and whether people are ever truly allowed to move on. But amid all of that noise, one moment cut through everything else: the funeral. Family, friends, and supporters gathered to say goodbye. Music played, tears flowed freely, stories were shared, some about his talent, others about moments the public never saw. There was no pretending his life had been easy or clean, but there was also no denying that he mattered, that his absence left a real gap, that someone who once took up space in rooms, studios, and streets was now reduced to memory. And that finality hit hard. For many, Kimmore's death became more than a single tragedy. It became a reflection of a pattern. Young men cycling through incarceration, returning home under pressure, carrying reputations that don't fade, and navigating environments where old conflicts never truly stay buried. His story forced uncomfortable questions about whether survival is enough, or whether some systems and circumstances make long-term escape nearly impossible. Because Kimmore Kendrick was more than a headline or a statistic. He was a man trying to exist between who he had been and who he was trying to become. And while the violence that took his life was swift, the impact of his death continues to ripple outward, through family, through music, and through a city still searching for answers.
Sipping drink in my condo, lately been smelling gun smoke. Got a call from the phasey, like take care of this shit pronto. Calculating my steps, I can't fumble cause I'm the honcho. No need to rush the process cause I'm lagging and he done for. Man down, shots fives, how he got stuck on a pedal. Bitch tried to get at my cousin, glad he got slumped.
What do you think about it? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And if you found this story intriguing, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.